Mike's on Mike, a conversation about politics, government, and Jacksonville, with 50-year opinion leaders Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and award-winning broadcaster and longtime political observer, Mike Miller.
Welcome once again to another episode of Mike's on Mike. I'm Mike Miller, along with my colleagues, of course, Mike Tolbert, Mike Hightower. We're all here, and we're taping our broadcast today from the mayor's office, Mayor Donna Deegan, who just happens to be our special guest, which is why we're in her office today, and we're delighted to have her here. Recently, Mayor Deegan presented her $1.9 billion budget to the city council. Now the council is going to be using great energy to go through every alley and every T to see not only where the money's going for, but also where the money's coming from. And we wanted to talk to the mayor about that budget as well as other Jacksonville issues. So, Mayor Deegan, welcome to Mike's on Mike.
Thank you. Nice to be with all you Mikes.
Thanks for having us.
Mayor, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it. And I have a simple question to begin with. Are you having fun?
Oh, my gosh, so much fun. Of course.
How?
Because you're here and you have the opportunity to move the dial. I mean, what could be more fun than that?
What's been your biggest challenge?
When I was running for office, I said I wanted to change the culture in City Hall. And I think that to a certain extent, we've done that. I think the biggest challenge, as I knew that it would be, is always politics.
Yeah.
I come into this office really with a very different mindset than I think most of the people that come into this sort of a position. It was never a job that I pined for my whole life. I've simply wanted to make a difference for my city. And I don't care about what political party anybody is as long as they're willing to work with me to do that. And I think working against the what has just been the normal cadence of political, silly business, I think has been probably the most difficult thing for me because I just don't have time for it. I know you're laughing at that, but the truth is it is really something that you deal with because you have to factor it into your timeline of everything. Okay, look, we're going to get past this, and then hopefully we can get to the point where we're actually getting things done. So between the bureaucracy of City Hall and the politics, that's probably been the most challenging.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think one of the reasons we're laughing is one of the things you talked about. What I hear is you are very authentic, and most people who are sitting in this office have not been that way.
Some have, but not all.
I really honestly, though, think, Mike, the big difference for me is I have no political aspirations past this office. And it gives me a great deal of freedom to just be able to do what I think is best for the city. People aren't always going to agree with me on what's best. But they'll know, I think, that I am authentically doing what I believe is best. And I'm doing my best to listen to what people are giving me as feedback. So, I am having fun. I'm having a great deal of fun.
In preparing for today, the three of us rewatched your riveting inaugural speech.
Who should have possibly had that as an idea?
I don't know. I wonder where that came from this stuff. But anyway, we wanted to review with you some of your promises. Now, most politicians say, I don't want to talk about what I promised. But anyway, among other things, you said for years, we've talked about bulkheads, drainage, septic tanks. And you said, it's now time to stop talking and make investments to fix what's long been broken.
That's right.
How does your budget reflect on those priorities that you laid out in the beginning? And before that, why did you say that?
Well, because that's our work. I think people need to understand what has been holding us back.
Yeah.
And I think not keeping those promises of consolidation has really held our city back. Infrastructure is a big key part of that, and it is what has. Look, I've made no bones about the fact that I have a very good relationship with the former mayor of Tampa, Bob Buckhorn, and we talked about that all the time on the campaign trail. He said, "Look, first of all, best storyteller wins." He said, but if what you mean is what you're saying, that infrastructure is the key to making this city go, you need to tell people that, and you need to tell the story of why. And you can't tell the story of why without going back and talking about the broken promises of consolidation. So from the very first budget we had, that we had about 2 weeks to craft, we basically reset the priorities of the CIP to grade it in a way that we bring up some of those things that created a path to start making good on some of those promises. And we've continued to do that in this budget. We can give you a whole list of all the priority items that are in the budget when it comes to infrastructure, but it is long. And it's important that we continue down that path.
Speaking of that, of course, there's a huge amount of investments from the $1.9 billion budget that you've proposed. $430 million for capital improvements, $46 million for solid waste, $11 million for stormwater projects, $36 million for parks, $38 million for building improvements at UF Health, $150 million for stadium improvements, and that has to be done before we start the actual renovation program. This is just bringing it up to speed.
That's right.
Before we get into the real spending. And you've also referred to the budget as being lean. How did it be a lean budget when we take a look at numbers like this? And also, with the amount of growth that we've had and experienced in Jacksonville, why have we not been able to generate the revenue to keep up with that growth and be able to obviously supply the services to those new residents and others that are moving into Jacksonville?
It was brought to me that there were some comments made that when you're, when you have the family budget, you got to buckle down and do the things. Look, our family is growing. We grew by 17,000 people last year. When you have a growing family, you got to feed that family. You've got to continue to feed the family that you have. And so I say it's a lean budget because go through there and find me a lot of extraneous stuff. There is not much in that budget. In fact, I challenge you to find anything in that budget that is fancy. It's a whole lot of things that we need, but if we stop investing in those things which are going to bring us the greatest return, some of those infrastructure projects, our police and fire is another great return on investment. And I'll tell you just as an aside, just for this past month, we have seen an 88% increase in the number of people applying to JSO.
Wow. Whoa.
That is a big return on investment.
I don't mean to interrupt, but do you think some of that has to do with moving to the FRS now that?
Well, sure, but I think also immediately what it has to do with is the fact that we are actually paying those folks a fairer wage for what they're doing. They're out there every day putting their lives on the line. And when I first came in and we started this process of negotiation, and I saw what we were paying our police officers, I said, "You got to be kidding me! How are we retaining anybody?" That at first the FRS wasn't really on my radar, but the salaries were. And the more that I met with our police and firefighters, and I had said during the campaign, if there was any way we could do it, I wanted to get back to a defined pension. But they were absolutely convinced, and they showed me, I think, evidence of the fact that if we did not return to an FRS, that we would continue to bleed people even with better salaries. And so it was a deep inhale for us for sure, but it was something that will be a great return on investment. And I guess that's the other way of answering your question. Look, we have a growing city. We have to make sure that we have the services that we need. So we want to remain a low tax city because that's how we attract business. That's how we attract people that want to live here. But at the end of the day, something's got to give, right? So what we have to do is invest in those things that are going to bring us the greatest return. But that's not always something you see in a year. So people have to understand that my job is not just to look at next year or even 5 years out. My job is to look 10 years, 20 years out. What's going to bring us the type of city that we want? And I think some of the investments that you see, as boring as infrastructure may be, are things that I said I'm going to create a new hashtag, make infrastructure sexy again. But those are things that we have to continue to do. And you can say that you want to be conservative in your spending. I want to be fiscally responsible. And to me, the fiscally responsible thing to do is to invest in those things that will make Jacksonville go.
This wasn't my next question, but I want to ask it. You haven't heard what you just said. We've got seems like a big issue with solid waste, a financial issue with solid waste. Well, we're going to see another garbage field on the horizon.
One thing I did not realize when I came in here was that it was in our ordinance code that we are supposed to do a fee review every single year. We don't do that. No. I'm learning that ordinance codes don't necessarily always matter. But to me, they're important. You need to go in, you need to look at your fees. And what our ordinance says is we should be recouping 80% at least of what that service costs.
Right.
So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to do the fee review as we are required to do. And then we'll come back and we'll take a look at it.
My real question was going to be, I wanted to talk about federal dollars. I know in your speech you talked about the fact that Jacksonville has left a lot of federal dollars on the table, and those days are over. Tell me, how have you harvested federal dollars in the first year? And this budget you're proposing, does it have any investment from federal dollars scheduled?
Well, no, not this year. This is our first year post having any of that money from the infrastructure bill and COVID money, right? And that's part of it, obviously. But we got that huge $147 million grant for the Emerald Trail, which will reduce our timeline to finish that trail by 5 years.
When you heard that news, what came through your brain? What did you think?
I did a double take because I didn't think we'd get the whole amount. I thought, okay, if we got half, it'd be great. And I saw the number and I went, we can finish this thing now. This is amazing. I mean, I felt that we had the right team in place. We brought Mike Langton in, who's just done an incredible job in bringing in federal dollars. We had a great team in D.C. We had a great team locally, and we developed those relationships. I met with Mayor Pete a couple of times. I met with HUD a couple of times. I met with a bunch of different people in the administration in terms of what we were trying to accomplish here. And I said, Jacksonville has really neglected some of its infrastructure, and this is something that could really, really take us down the road. And they were very helpful in helping us to create the type of grant that we needed to write to get that done. So we should not just that we got a lot more that we have out there, and most of it we probably won't hear about until fall or after the election. But we are continuing to be very, very aggressive in going after those dollars.
We did, however, just get a grant, which was announced, the $845,000 for the Out East project.
That's right. Yeah. That's great. And obviously, it's not as big an investment, but it's a very important investment.
It's a big investment, though.
It is.
Comparatively speaking,
historically speaking, I agree.
Big investment.
Absolutely.
But when you combine it with the CBA,
exactly,
more important.
Well, and look, and I will say this about the CBA and that issue. I think when folks from the East Side came here to make their case, I think it's so important that people understand that this was the very community that has been left behind by consolidation, that was made promises during consolidation, and that they are where they are in many respects because of the fact that we haven't kept those promises.
Exactly.
Now that we have all this other development that's going to be going on, we've got to make sure that community is lifted. And I think the council sees that. I really do. I think they were very persuasive, and I think that will probably be, if I had to read the tea leaves, probably the easiest part of the community benefit agreement to get across the finish line. The other parts, when we talk about workforce development, we've historically had really poor workforce development efforts here in terms of actually moving those numbers. If you look at other cities like Tampa or Nashville, we have to make sure we have the workforce to get the work done. We have a lot of stuff going on in this city now. And so we have to make the workforce, that we'll be making that argument. We'll be making the argument about why we need the dollars for homelessness. All those things are going to be key. Affordable housing, all those things are going to be key to our future success. And we can't back off of them just because we have budget challenges. We have to make sure that we're taking steps to be as fiscally responsible as we can. And if you would give me a moment to talk about this, I think it's really important. We have put in place a number of lean teams, which I know y'all know what that means, but for folks who are watching, process improvement teams that are working with every department of this city to make sure that we can be as efficient, we can save as much time and money as possible over the coming years. So again, the whole idea, let's make sure that we are taking government and making it as efficient as possible. Let's make it run as well as we can, and let's save as much money as we can save while investing in the things that we need to invest in. But with this budget, for all that you're hearing about the dollars and where they're going, we are taking money out of reserves in this budget to make this budget work, right? It still leaves us with double the amount of money in reserves. And we're talking general reserves. We're not touching any emergency reserves. Double the amount of money in reserves as we targeted to have in reserves. So the family still has a very healthy savings account, okay? But at some point, you don't want to starve the kids.
Yeah.
Because you want to we put $76 million additional dollars into reserves last year.
We can still buy new diapers.
We can still buy new diapers. We can still buy food. So it's
And take care of the in-laws.
and take care of the in-laws. Well, I don't know about the in-laws. The in-laws may be on their own, but it is. We have plenty of money in our reserves.
That is an important clarification.
Yeah.
It is.
Because as we've talked about, sometimes the news or other people who have a problem with it will not tell you the whole story.
That's right. That's right.
And this is an important clarification.
It's an important clarification, and that's where I say, I think sometimes I have to remind myself that politics does play a role in things that are said. Things that are said privately sometimes are not the same things that are said publicly.
Really?
And look, that's disheartening to me. And that may sound whatever it sounds, but that's not how I want to do business. That's not how I want to do business. So that's the stuff I have to get myself over.
That goes back to the challenge.
Yeah, that goes back to the challenge. But the truth is, this is a very fiscally responsible budget, and I will always present a balanced budget, and I will never go further than we can go to have the reserves that we need. So I do want to make sure that those things that we have begun to finally fund properly continue to be funded.
Get finished.
And get finished. Otherwise, you know what we're doing? We're still looking at potential. We're still looking at renderings, and we're never looking at those renderings becoming reality.
How do you see the rest of your budget going through with this supermajority?
Listen, I don't know. I honestly don't know at this point because we have not started those budget meetings, those hearings where we're going to go in front of the different committees, and we're going to lay out for them why we made these expenditures and why they're important. And at the end of the day, obviously, council will do what they're going to do. But I'm going to make the case, as I will continue to make the case to the people of Jacksonville, for why we are doing these things. And frankly, I think people elected me to stop doing business as usual in this city because it hasn't gotten us where we want to be. So I'll continue to try to make that case. Council will do what they think is the best thing to do, and I suspect we'll meet someplace in the middle.
My good colleague here, Mr. Talbert, has shared with us over this last year of doing this is that you can never over-communicate with the public. And what I'm hearing is, if the members of the council don't want to hear it, people of Jacksonville will hear it.
Well, look, that's been my belief since I got into this office. We've had so many community meetings when I first got in, then again with the Jaguars deal. We'll continue to have those. We're gonna do those every year. And frankly, I say yes to as many events as I can say yes to and still do my job because I want to be out there getting feedback from people. And I think, what you learn when you do those things is that people desperately want to be part of their city government. They have just felt like they did not have a voice. And so when I go to these things, largely what I do is I just say, I'm here to listen, go. And then we have a discussion based on what people want to know about or what their issues are. We're not going to ever make everybody happy, but I will not be that person that hasn't taken the time to listen. I can tell you that.
We got 14 council districts and 5 at large. Any incentives in there to help them come along?
Look,
or you're looking at it from a total of what's good for the community?
That's really how I approach things.
Right.
Even with the community benefit agreement, we had some money in there for each council district's parks, but that really came from a suggestion that, look, a lot of our youth programs and parks in these communities need some love in this community benefit agreement. But it was a very tiny amount. And I know there are some council people that would like to see bigger chunks go to the council districts. And my feeling is we need to spend money on the things that are going to bring us the return on a large scale. And so we're continuing to go. And as far as the budget goes, look, I meet with council people all the time. I always want to know what's important to them.
Right.
I want to understand what is important to them in their district. And I'll do what I can to make sure those things get done. But at the end of the day, if it's got to meet what I think is the bigger picture that's going to be best for the city.
Great.
Speaking of the
Long overdue, by the way.
Yeah, CBA, with council making plans to take up the budget, they also are going to have to take up the CBA. What's the timing on this? Because it's very much a part of the $1.4 billion stadium deal.
Yeah, that's right. Well, look, I don't think you want to leave money on the table from the Jaguars. I mean, to me, if we were able to negotiate $50 million additional from the Jaguars and even spread out over 30 years, that's real money. So we need to make sure that we are fully taking advantage of that money and doing the things that we can do to move some really important issues. So we hope that process is done by the end of August. We're that it's all been presented at this point, and we'll go forward with that in hearings and meetings, and hopefully we'll be voting on that by the end of August. That's the goal.
If I can just slide this one in, how's your relationship with President White?
Oh, I really love Randy. I think I think he is. And look, I had a good relationship with Ron for all the things that you hear about that. I think Ron and I can have some different approaches to things, and Randy and I will have that. I think where Randy and I are most aligned is that both of us are very much let's get stuff done people. He is not seemingly very, very concerned about the political this, that, or the other thing. He just wants to get stuff done. Now, we won't always agree on how to do that, and that's okay. But if I'm dealing with somebody who honestly just is trying to get to a place with me, and as many places as we can get to together, that's a good thing.
He also doesn't seem to have any other political ambition.
Well, that's the other piece.
Very important.
I think that's the other piece. I think both of us have the mentality of let's get as much done as we can get done. And I think both of us, when the time comes, will be happy to pass that baton on to the next person and go get on our Airstreams or whatever we're going to do and to travel the country. But no, Randy has been a joy to work with so far. Yeah.
I want to ask you about healthcare. I mean, it's very obvious to all of us that healthcare is such an important part of your life. Yeah. And you said it was going to be a priority in your administration. You put $38 million in the budget for UF Health. Why that investment, and what else are you doing in the healthcare arena in this budget?
Well, those are for capital improvements for things that they need. In terms of what we're almost $60 million we're actually investing into what they're doing for the community. Look, here's the bottom line. I know it makes the other hospitals unhappy when I say this, but the truth is UF Health is our safety net hospital. A lot of the patients that get served by UF Health are patients that the other hospitals just aren't going to be able to accommodate. Correct. So they go to UF Health. It's an enormous, enormous burden. We met with them and they showed us their full load of what the uninsured population. So what we said is, let's do everything we can, because in my view, and I've said this repeatedly, if we don't have a healthy city, we don't have a productive city. And I gave you the health numbers when we came in. Our primary health numbers are not good in Jacksonville. So I want to move those, and to move those, we got to move the whole system forward a little bit. And I think UF Health we've got to support them. Got to support.
Well, healthcare has historically been a big burden for the city. Yeah. I remember back in the 80s when Mayor Godbold partnered with Dr. Roy Baker to try to go after University of Florida and get the Chans over here in the medical school. And primary motivation for that, one of the primary motivations was the cost that the city was already incurring. Mm-hmm. And it's always going to be a driving factor. Yeah. But now with UF investing so much more money in Jacksonville, how's that going to change the picture?
Well, look, I want to also say this is also world-class care.
Yes, it is.
So our goal is also to get more patients with means over there, because this is world-class care, and we need to make sure we're telling that story. If you look at the rankings every year that come out, they're right up there. And so people need to understand that's good care. But look, as you know, we don't expand Medicaid in this state. So there's a great deal of, regardless of how you feel about it, that's a great deal of additional pressure that gets put on to UF Health. So we've done a couple things. We've invested in UF Health, and we started with Sunil Joshi, who's our chief health officer, and Lynn Sherman. We started a campaign this year to increase the number of our people that were insured, and we increased that number by 34%. And the huge majority of it was in the zip codes where we really needed to do that. That's going to save us a lot of money from people showing up at the emergency rooms without insurance. So they're all steps on a path. We've improved telehealth. We've improved mental health, programs that we believe will reap a lot of benefits for us, in the coming years. But, I remember people asked me when I first was started to run for office, I've never seen somebody run for mayor who makes healthcare one of their planks. And I said, because I truly believe if we can't be a healthy city, we can't be a successful city. So it's more than a moral imperative to me. It is really dollars and cents that if we don't tackle this, we just don't do well.
It can be both.
Well, it also reinforces the fact, as you say, we've grown by 17,000 people.
You can't pretend that's not happening. It's really important for us to acknowledge.
Well, when you talk about world class, you hear their trauma center.
Yeah, world class.
Yeah.
World class.
So again, it's about leadership.
Yeah,
it's about strategic planning. What you're doing.
Yeah. No, well, we have to. I just don't. I don't think you have a choice there if you want to. If you want to be able to serve your community. So,
how are we going to ignite downtown?
Okay, well, I'll tell you two things that are going to be happening that I think are going to be catalytic projects for us. The related project across the river on the South Bank, which is in the old River City Brewing location.
Right.
That is a developer that brings people with them. Okay, George Perez and the folks that related have basically between him and the folks that are involved with the Gateway Jacks, Brian Mall, both of those people were instrumental in building Tampa, and people follow them. So the related project is going to be going up on the South Bank. The Gateway Jacks project is going to be going up right here on Pearl Street. Both of those things, I believe, will be catalytic projects for us.
What about the trio?
The trio right now is not in a good place. Yeah. I'll be honest. I was really rooting to get that done. In fact, I know that myself and members of council, we were willing to accept a deal that, frankly, we didn't think was very good for the city in order to finally get this thing off of stall.
Right. But
every time we would get close, it would seem the goalposts were moved. And so at this point, I'm finished talking about it. I am ready to move on to whatever other solutions there may be.
We had A.G. Gankarski, I can hardly ever say his name, Gankarski, on our show this past week. And one of the things he did in a column, he started it out by saying, Mayor Donna Deegan had an audacious first year. Now, Hightower had no idea what the hell that meant. So we explained.
Now you know what I'm about.
Wow, Mike, I'm sorry that I treat you like that.
And I'm just,
that's the best day.
So, do you agree? And if so, why? Why was it audacious?
I think it was a very successful first year. I think we completed some infrastructure projects that we really wanted to complete and or at least got a long way down the road on. I think getting that Jaguars deal done on time and the way that we wanted to get it done was huge. I don't have to tell any of the three of you in this city, our history is we let things go so long, we argue about them for so long that they either end up costing double or they fall apart. That was a really big deal. But there were a lot of things, the police and fire contracts, our literacy initiatives. There were so many successes in this first year of things that the healthcare numbers, the 34% increase in our insured rate. Those are all things that you talk about those promises that I made when I stood up there. Everything is meant to making this city the best city that it can possibly be, and to uniting us to where we believe in ourselves. I think, you talked about Jake earlier. I think we believed in ourselves.
Yes, that was the goal.
And
from day one.
And my belief is we can be the bold new city of the South if we simply stop getting in our own way. So we're going to just continue the forward progress. But the first year, I think, was a great example of what we can do when we all move together. And I give the council credit for that too. We could not have done. I couldn't do it in a vacuum. They got to come along, and they did.
Well, you made the incredible statement that we talked about when you said those of us who get elected are there to make decisions. Let's make decisions. It's about leadership. That's what we were elected to do.
That's right. That's right.
Don't move it around on the table.
That's
what you've done.
Yeah, no. Sometimes you have to take things to the voters, but when it comes to decisions like this, that's what I think people elected me to do, and I'm grateful they did.
We're grateful to you.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Continue.
When are you coming on next? I mean, so much more we didn't get to that we'd love to get to with you. So
anytime that we
hopefully
can help you get the message out. That's what we're here for.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being with us. And that's it for another edition of Mike's on Mike. Thank you all for joining us. Our thanks, of course, to the Jacksonville History Center, the prime sponsor of our podcast, and the donors that keep the lights running and the cameras rolling.
There you go.
Yeah. Join us next week. Once again, we hope you will. Take care. Bye-bye.
Y'all take care. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Mike's on Mike with Mike Tolbert, Mike Hightower, and Mike Miller can be found on your favorite podcasting platform, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit the website at mikesonmike.com. Join us next time for more conversation with Mike's on Mike.